Thank you for joining us today for our Overcoming Objections 101 class on what to say and how to say it. Today's program, the materials or the handouts you can get on the LAER Career Den under the library, under training. And if you go to the LAER 30-day agent program, if you download the day 8 materials called Overcoming Objections, as well, also under the library, we have an entire manual with hundreds of scripts and dialogues. It's called Words That Work for Lions, and strongly encourage everybody to download a copy of that because you will find scripts for every type of situation you could run into in real estate, from for sale by owners to overcoming an objection at a listing table to expired listings, you name it. So all the materials are on the LAER Career Den under the library. So let's dig in. We're going to talk about overcoming some of the most common objections that are out there. Best places to follow so that you can find more great content all the time. David Knox, Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, Daryl Davis, Dirk Ziller, Brian Buffini. If you go to any of those websites, these are some of the biggest trainers in the real estate space. If you go to any of their websites, almost all of them offer free content on scripts and dialogues and objection handling. Mike Ferry is one of my favorites. If you go to his website, you'll find all kinds of free content that you can download so that you can always be learning like new ways to overcome tiny objections that you will occasionally have to face in your real estate business. Got it? Yes. So one thing that I like to say to people is a couple things. First of all, objections are opportunities. If somebody offers you an objection, that is a sign that they're actually engaged in whatever you're saying. So that's a huge opportunity. What you don't want sometimes, and I always say, like, if you have a great presentation, this is why I'm a huge fan of listing presentations and buyer presentations, because if you have a great presentation, you know the common objections you're going to have to overcome, and you can embed answers to those objections right into your presentation so that at the end you don't have a big objection that you have to overcome because you've literally addressed everything. That being said, when you do occasionally get presented some sort of objection, look at it as an opportunity. Don't be bummed out that this person's like questioning you or asking you like, hey, I thought I want to get a lower commission, or so-and-so down the street has more market share than you do. If somebody's asking those questions, it's absolutely an opportunity because that person has been listening to what you've said and they are engaged and willing to have dialogue. So there's an opportunity for you to do business. When a buyer referrals, I want you to work with me if you buy or sell a house. So just something to think about when it comes to our own perceptions. We think we're asking for business and sometimes we don't realize we're not. When presented with an objection, make sure that you hear clearly what the person is saying. If you interpret the objection wrong, the answer you give, no matter how eloquent, will not be sufficient to overcome their area of concern. So when somebody presents you with an objection, just ask. Say, I think what you're saying, or I think what you're asking, or I think what your concern is this, just to make sure that you really have down what the actual concern is. Avoid the mistake of trying to answer the objection before the buyer or seller gets the objection completely out of their mouth. This is really hard for any of us that are in sales because we're waiting for the objections, and as soon as somebody starts to say something, we're like spitting out our answer to the objection. Sit back, relax, listen to everything the person has to say, let them get it all out of their mouth. The objection is legitimate to that person, so no matter how ridiculous you might think the objection is, let them get it out, hear the entire objection. Interrupting can cause the seller or buyer to become irritated with you. May not matter how well you can handle the objection if you interrupt them and they can't even get it out. Your mental approach to an objection will determine your success or failure. Most agents dread hearing an objection, but most objections result from one or two situations. One is the seller or buyer has legitimate concerns regarding the property and or your skill, to your skill set or your ability to sell the home. Or two, the occurrence of objections is because your presentation was not good enough. You did not convey the confidence that you were the person for the seller to hire for the sale of his or her home. That's why, again, I'm a massive advocate of having this great presentation that spells out everything you can do, because if you have a really strong objection, then you can address that right in your presentation. So I always say too that if you know an objection's going to happen, then address it right up front. So, for example, in training newer agents, one of the things newer agents often are concerned with, well, when I go on a listing presentation, what if they ask me how many houses I've sold? So I always say the best thing you can do, if you know that question's coming up, address it right off the bat so that you come out from a place of strength where you say, right, as part of your presentations, oh, I know you're probably going to ask how many houses I've sold. This is actually going to be my first one, and this is why I'm best suited to sell the property. Because if you go list with the number one agent in town who has 17 listings right now, what kind of service do you think you're going to get with that agent who has 17 other sellers they're trying to service versus me? This is my first listing. I'm going to kill it on this property. So get it off the table, address it. That way you don't even have an objection. The client's desire to work with you is a natural ending to a great presentation. If the presentation is weak, your objections will flow like a river. So get good with your presentation and great at overcoming objections, and you will have mastered a great deal of this business. So it's interesting because I look at recruiting real estate agents very similar to going and doing listing and buyer presentations. So when I recruit real estate agents, when I show up, I have a presentation on my computer. Take out my computer, I go through my PowerPoint. I know the objections that are going to come up. So for example, we're a little bit different than, say, a Keller Williams company, because a Keller Williams company has a 100% cap program. We don't have a 100% cap program. So if I'm sitting with a Keller Williams agent, I address it. I say, well, one of the big things that people are concerned about when they're joining our company is your company has this, our company doesn't, but these are the reasons why I still think there's a better opportunity at our company than where you're at right now. So instead of like pussyfooting around it, or worse, letting them leave without them getting the question out, I'd rather say, you know what, I know it's running in the back of your head, I'm going to just get it out there right now. So get strong with your presentation. The better the presentation, the less objections you're going to have to overcome. Too many agents adopt the position of a deer looking in the headlights when an objection comes their way. These agents have a negative mental attitude about objections. That amounts to about $2,500. Let me ask you this. If that agent was so quick to give away $2,500 of his own money, how quickly is he going to give away thousands of dollars of your money when it comes to negotiating with another party on the sale of your home? Or, I know this isn't going to happen, but let's say you're going to have brain surgery done. Now, understanding money is important, but you look in the paper and you see a surgeon who says, hey, I'll give you 20% off for brain surgery this week. Would you even want to deal with that person? Probably not. Some things are too important to discount. I'm assuming that selling your house, which is one of the biggest investments of your lifetime, is one of those important things that you would not want to work with a discount company. How about when you go on a listing appointment and you do a complete market analysis, you know exactly what the house is worth, and there are real estate agents who will go out there and say to the seller, I can get you $50,000 more than what they said they can get. Well, we all know that the market is the market. That agent is not going to be able to get them $50,000 more than another agent. So one of the things you need to do is make sure your sellers understand that the worst thing they can do is select a real estate agent based on what that agent says that they can get them for a price, because it is not an agent that is going to dictate the price of a property. The market's going to dictate the price. So, a couple ways to overcome the objection. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I know it's confusing when different agents come in with different prices. In fact, it's not difficult to work with the MLS data to come up with a large range of numbers. There are many agents out there that don't have a lot of listings, and they will sometimes tell a seller what they want to hear simply to get the listing. They will worry about price reductions down the road. In a market like we're in today, the amount of money you get for your property will depend heavily on the number of eyeballs we get on the property when we initially list it. The more eyeballs, the more offers. The more offers, the higher the price. The worst thing you can do is price high, because you will end up chasing the market down. You will get less eyeballs on the property. You want the most for your house? Price it the lowest. How about overcoming the objection that you have so many listings? How can you give our listing the attention it deserves? 3 weeks from now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I think you'll be looking back and thinking that one of the biggest advantages I bring to my table is my other inventory. You see, the more signs I have on the street, the more calls I get from buyers. And most of those buyers don't buy the house that they call on. In fact, they're not interested in the home they're calling on. I look first within my inventory to find them a different house. Now, can you see the advantage of listing with an agent that has a strong inventory of other homes available? Benjamin Franklin had a quote that said, if you need something done, ask a busy person. How about when a seller says, I want to find a house to buy before I put my house on the market? That's been a big issue over the summer, because we all know if you have a home sale contingency, it's going to be very, very difficult to get your offer accepted. So we say, Mr. Seller, I agree, finding your new home is important, and the unfortunate thing is that it could take as long as 3 months for your home to sell. Then it will take another 2 months to get all the paperwork done, and by that time, any home that you would have found is already sold. Or you could say, okay, let's sign the paperwork tonight on your home, subject to finding suitable housing, and then I will make an appointment with you to meet with the lender to see if you would qualify for 2 mortgages at the same time. Or, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's talk for a minute about your home being listed. We have talked about some of the challenges in today's market. How would you feel if an offer came in on your house right now, and that offer was subject to the buyer selling his own home, because it's not yet sold? Would you take that offer seriously? Or the problem, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, with finding the house you want to buy first is that you could end up losing a lot of money. Either you're going to have to end up paying top dollar for the new home, or you're going to have to sell this one for less if you end up getting your offer accepted on that home that you want to go look at. Let's say we go out and look at some houses, you find a house you love, you go to the sellers, you want to negotiate them down, yet you haven't sold your house yet. So are the sellers for the new home going to be at some risk since you haven't sold your house yet? If so, what are the sellers going to do about it? They may sell it to you, but it's going to be under tough conditions. Do you think they're going to be flexible on price with you? Definitely not. They're going to want to stay firm because they're taking a risk by taking your offer with the home sale contingency. Let's say you even do negotiate with the seller and you work out a good deal. You're now under contract to buy that house. Now, what do you have to do with your house? You have to sell it quickly. That quick sale means that you're going to have to discount it in the market. The worst part about this is that you're not in the driver's seat. You're not in a good position because you need the money quickly to pay for the other house. But here's the worst part. Whether it's contingent or not, if you don't sell your house in time and you have to drop the whole thing, you lose all around. Let's look at the flip side. Right now we're in the driver's seat, meaning you don't have any specific commitment to buy a particular house. Puts you in a much better bargaining position when we list your house. That's beautiful, because here's what we're going to do. We put your house on the market for the price we want. We wait until we find a buyer. When one comes, we sell it, no pressure, because we're in the driver's seat. We find a buyer and this person is willing to give us our price. Now we can go and find the sellers of another house and say, hey, look, I want to buy your home and I've got $400,000. It's like a cash offer because I've already sold my house. Do you think the sellers would then be willing to listen? Would they then be willing to negotiate? Because you are a strong offer at that point. My point is that by selling your home first, you're in the driver's seat. If you go out and buy a house first, you're locked in because you've made a commitment. You're no longer in the driver's seat. Okay, another objection. This is an important one because as you are in the real estate business for a while, you're going to want to start going for the bigger homes. We've had 13 sales this year at LAER over $1 million. Well, how do you get into those higher price ranges? So the client says, we want to list with you, but it doesn't seem like you have the expertise to sell a $1 or $2 million house. What you say is, what's beautiful, this is beautiful position we're in because here's what we're going to do. We put your house on the market for the price we want. We wait, oh, that's the wrong one. I sell a lot of homes in lower price ranges, and that's what I find is that after I sell my clients' homes, many of them move up into your price range. Therefore, it only makes sense that the next logical step for me is to start to sell in your price range. So basically, you turn it around so that you show that the value you bring to the table is that you are working with people who are already moving up to the multi-million-dollar price ranges. I need to net this amount in order to move. I have to be at my new job in 90 days, but I can't afford to buy a new home if I take a loss. This is going to start happening a lot, especially with a massive influx of inventory, more than 20% increase in inventory in all of our markets for the fall market. So that means we're going to see a lot of people who are going to have to start doing price reductions, and you're going to have people who say, you're going to go to your seller and say, the house is worth $300,000. And they're going to say, well, I got to get $350,000. For this to work, I have to be out of this house and in my new job in 90 days, and I need $350,000 to make the deal work. How do you overcome it? You say, I hear you. There's a lot of people in your position in this market. Has there ever been a time when you knew you were going to have to make a sacrifice, where you knew it was going to be tough, and in the end, after analyzing all of your options, you realize that there's only one thing to do, to just go for it? It was the only thing you could do, but you found in the end it all worked out. You made it through the tough times and life went on, maybe even better than before. This time is just like that. The market analysis shows that it is unlikely anyone is going to give you what you need to make for this move. Is it more important for you to get out from under this house, take your new job, work through the tough times? Or are you in a position that you can just keep making the mortgage payment on this house for a couple of years until the prop? So you got to be candid with people. Or let's pretend that I give you $101 bills and I say, go to the mall and sell each of these $101 bills for 95 cents. This is hypothetical, obviously. For 95 cents, do you think you could sell all of your bills? Probably. How quickly would they sell if we marked them at 85 cents? Now think about, what if we marked those bills and we're going to go try to sell those $1 bills for $1.20? How fast would they sell? What I'm saying to you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, is that by taking a house that's worth $200,000 and trying to get more for it, that will happen. Most agents won't even realize your home has been reduced. Now you might say, can't we send them a flyer telling them it's been reduced? Yeah, we can send everyone a flyer telling them that you reduced the price, but agents get all kinds of those notices each week. If they see that you had the home price real high from the beginning, that's only going to tell them that you were kind of unrealistic when you listed the property, meaning that you didn't believe that what I was saying was true. All agents interpret this as trouble when it comes to getting a deal closed. So if we price it to sell right from the beginning, our odds of getting agents to show it is that much higher. How about when they say, we're not quite ready, we need to finish a couple projects around the house before we put it on the market? I say when somebody tells you that, one of the worst things you can do is leave the listing without a signed listing contract. Even if they have work to do, you might as well get all the paperwork signed. You can list it for a future date, but have them sign everything so that you don't risk another person knocking on their door, the next door neighbor seeing they're doing work and have a dumpster out front so they go put an offer in without you. So when somebody says that they have work to do, they're going to list it once all the work is done, you say, awesome, why don't we complete the paperwork right now? And while you're doing your projects, I'll get a flyer done, we'll get the paperwork processed so that when you're ready, we're ready. We'll write into the contract that there's no showings for 2 weeks. How about when somebody asks you to cut their commission? We've already gone through some of these scripts, because there are always going to be agents who are going to work for less than you are. So you need to get great at defending your commission. One way you can do that is you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you know, you're right. There's definitely agents out there that'll do this for less than what I get paid. I'd be very concerned for you if you chose one of them. If an agent is so desperate that they're willing to broadcast the fact that they don't think they have any value as a realtor, so that they're taking a reduced commission, is that the type of person you want sitting on your side of the negotiating table trying to get you a better price for the home? They don't even see their own personal value. Is that the type of person you want negotiating on your behalf for the most valuable transaction you'll ever negotiate in your lifetime? Or if you say to your seller, commissions are not negotiable with agents who sell homes. That's the bottom line. They're only negotiable with realtors who don't believe in the services they offer. You need a strong agent that sells homes, right? Or you say, here's a list of what I do for you as a professional. What pieces would you like me to take out if you're going to ask me to take less for my marketing fee? That's why we build into our listing presentation the list of everything real estate agents do. So we got that from the National Association of Realtors. It's right inside the listing presentation we use. And it basically lets the seller know there's 100 different things we're going to do. We talk about it in the 7 Secrets book. It's in the 7 Secrets client presentation. But the whole point is we want the client to know that there's all this stuff we're going to do. And that's why we have a marketing fee, and if they want us to cut it down, then we've got to take stuff out that we're just not going to do on their property. How about somebody that wants to have an exclusion in the listing in case their friend or neighbor wants to buy it? I say that you go to them and say, I agree it's important to be thorough when we're filling out the contract. Let me ask you this. Why haven't you already sold the home to your friend or neighbor? Is it because your personal marketing hasn't worked and that's why you're hiring me? If my marketing works well enough to convince your friend or neighbor to finally put an offer in, isn't that what you would be paying me for? Aren't you hiring me to let the public know your home is for sale and convince people they should buy it? Why would I cut my commission if my marketing works, which gets it so that your next door neighbor decides to finally put an offer in on the property? How about the last agent never showed our home himself and neither did anyone from his office? Then you say to the seller, did they promise you they'd be showing your home nonstop? Well, then I could appreciate what you're telling me. I, for one, will not promise that I'm going to be showing your house. I'm going to market your property to the top agents in the area. Did you want me marketing your property to real estate agents that don't sell real estate? Instead, I'm going to just market to the best agents in the market. Doesn't mean I'm going to be the one that shows up and shows the property. Or your sellers who decide that, or say they want to try selling it themselves. We talked about some objection handling already, like talking about the amount of liability and the amount of paperwork they're going to have to face. Another way to approach it is to say, I totally understand the thought of trying to get a home sold yourself. Part of what I do as a professional is I spend time contacting other agents and potential buyers. I ask them if they would like to buy your home, or if they know someone who would like to buy your home, or if they would like to sell their home. That is what I consider active marketing. How skilled are you at phone solicitation? Because you're going to have to do phone solicitation. How about your ability to negotiate? Have you ever done that before? Do you not host open houses? Do your social media ads, creating marketing flyers? Because those are all the things that are going to get the property sold. How about the seller that says we'd like to meet 2 more agents before we decide who we're going to choose? You could say, that sounds reasonable. How will you be comparing agents? What differences are you looking for? Will you be comparing them based on events that they control, such as their years of experience and marketing plan, or are you going to be comparing them on events they can't control, like marketing time or the market value that they say they can get for the property? I don't want to do the repairs before I sell. Let buyers do the repairs, so on houses that need some work. You could say, well, when you were shopping for your home, were you looking to buy a home that needed repairs, or did you want something you could just move into? Many buyers, if given the choice, will lean towards a move-in ready home. Also, did you know that buyers will overestimate the cost of repairs by 2 to 3 times, then reflect that amount in their offer to you? So, easy way to get people to consider just doing the work in advance. Or you could say, have you ever heard the expression, it's all in the presentation? Mr. Seller, let's say that you want a steak at a fine restaurant. They might charge somewhere around $35 for a standard cut of meat. If we go to a local fast food steakhouse chain, we're going to pay $9.95. Same steak. What's the difference? The atmosphere, the decor, the building, the location, the service, the presentation. So as an analogy, if you want to take our $9.95 steak and get $35 for it, you're going to have to make adjustments in the presentation of the home. Either you've got to invest several $1,000s to fix the house up to get the price, or just leave it the way it is and go with the lower price. How about the client who wants open houses every single weekend until it's sold? Now, you might want to do open houses, so really think about that, because an open house is an opportunity to get more clients. But if you don't want to do the open houses, you can let them know that they're not necessarily going to have a return on your investment in time in doing open houses, because the number of people that actually buy at an open house is extremely low. How about your buyers that you're working with that want to write an offer in a hot market, $50,000 below asking, to see how much they can squeeze out of the seller? One way to overcome that is to say, making a low offer seems tempting, but let me ask you this. If you make an offer and lose the home to someone who made a higher one, what will you do with the money you saved? In other words, you lost the deal. I just want you to consider this. What's more important to you, owning the home or saving money? From my experience, I can tell you that I oftentimes see sellers take less than asking, but that is when they are coming down to market value. When a home is priced at market value, those homes typically sell at market value, and sometimes even more than market value. Another item to think about is your relationship with that seller. If you came in $5 below asking, the seller would be foolish to counter. If you come in way too low, you're suggesting that you want them to counter. Also, by going too low, you may offend the owner and lose the opportunity to negotiate the best agreement. How about, I think we'll wait to buy. We want to jump in when the prices are rock bottom. Believe me, we all want to jump in when the market bottoms. The question is, how are we going to know when we've hit the bottom? The answer is when the market goes back up. You're never going to know when the market is at the top or the bottom, just when it was at the top or the bottom. So the question is this: is there a benefit to buying a home before the market bottoms rather than after? The answer is yes. Lower rates, more inventory, you can take your time in making a decision. Buying now means you can enjoy your new home right away. Or what about the people who say we had a bad experience with our agent, so we're going to sell on our own? Another FSBO situation. Let's take a scenario like this. We say to the seller, I'm going to purposely blow it out of proportion a little. You're flying to Chicago, and you flew a particular airline. You were a few hours late, your bags were a day late, the flight attendants went to a bad training program, and they had no food on the flight. Now on your next flight, just because you had that bad experience with that other airline or that other real estate agent, here, would you still fly a plane? Probably, because you know that it's better than walking. You get there quicker, you won't pass out. Just because you had a bad experience with one company doesn't mean that there's not value in the service that's being provided. You may never work with that airline again, but you still see the value of flying. What I'm saying is, don't discount real estate agents just because you had a bad experience with one. Just don't use that one again. We want to hire you, but we must list at a higher price. So again, Mr. Seller, let's pretend you're going fishing and the fish were way down at the bottom. Where would you place the bait? Way down at the bottom. Let's say that we place the bait way up at the top where there's no fish. Are we even going to get nibbles? Probably not. So we want to make sure that we are placing the bait, your property, where we're going to get the most eyeballs, the most nibbles. And that means that we have to price it at market value, or if we price below market value, we're going to get even more nibbles. Or if your house is worth $150 and we were to list it at $130, what do you think would happen? Would we have multiple offers? Would we have people knocking down the door to get in? If you list it at $150, we're going to get an average number of buyers to get the house sold in the time frame that I showed you, because that's fair market. What happens if we go above fair market? Well, if we go above fair market, we're going to have fewer buyers because competition of other homes. It just weeds out more and more buyers. If we list it for $200, we'd maybe have one who'd even look at it. So the higher you go, the fewer the buyers. The fewer the buyers, the longer the whole process takes. The concern is that your house stays on the market for too long, it gets stale, which means you're going to have to price reduce. So that is it. There's literally hundreds of ways to overcome objections. What I can't stress enough is having a killer presentation so you don't have to overcome objections. And going on to the LAER Career Den, we have a complete manual. It's a couple hundred pages long on every objection handling technique for every type of situation. But get good, have a killer presentation, and don't be afraid. If you know the objection's coming, address it. Address it in advance so that it can't become an objection. And that is it for Objection Handling 101.